Okay, now I'm going to discuss the fourth element, um, or or classification, or whatever you want to call them, of this holistic tarot model that I am discussing. Um, just to recap, first I explained what holistic meant to me and how I relate to that. Then I just discussed the psychic uh, element of tarot, then the intuitive element of tarot. Um, the first was primary elements that I discussed in the first video, then psychic, and then uh, intuitive. And now we're going to talk about uh, the supernatural. And this is the part that is very difficult for me to want to speak about publicly, because I don't think people realize that when I say supernatural, I mean that in the most scientific manner. And it sounds like an oxymoron. It does. But I want to discuss my method first of the supernatural element, and then I will discuss and then and then I'll tell you about a specific event, and then I think I want to justify it scientifically. Sometimes, as I mentioned, you'll get a read a card and you have to decide what it means, and I already talked about the primary elements, and then from there the intuitive way that you can pick something out in the card, and that guides you into which definition or what that could possibly mean. Well, sometimes I'll be doing a read. Let's say it's a read about relationships, and a lot of cups are coming up, which typically happen in a lot of relationship reads because cups are about emotion. Not always, but say I have a pattern is forming, and I'm telling the story, and I'm connecting and using my intuition, and all of a sudden a card comes up that just doesn't fit. I've actually read in one book somebody said that that if you have enough cards that don't fit, just throw the read out, and I've never done that. I've never but maybe it's because I have this method. But I look at the card that doesn't fit, and I go through the process, the intuitive process. I look at every element on the card. Does my intuition tell me that there's anything on that card that I can make fit into this read? Because it's not going along with the story. It's an abrupt change. Now, if the placement of the card in the spread is different from the rest, then that could justify it. But sometimes it doesn't. So I look at the card hard. I with my intuition. And if I still am not coming up with anything, this is when I try to do a psychic or a supernatural psychic read. This is when I stare at the card. I focus on the energy of the querent, on their question, and then quiet and clear my mind. And this is the really weird part that's hard to explain unless you've had this experience. You move through the deck. You move through the cards. Again, if you haven't done this, you don't. It sounds crazy. Terence McKenna, who's a psychedelicist that talks about passing through your body and an experience. Now that's not like an astral projection where you rise up out of your body. It's passing through your body, which is hard to explain, but if you've done it, you totally understand what he's talking about. And in the same way, you focus and you meditate, and this can take a minute or two or longer if you once you've learned how to do this. Which is why, as a phone psychic, I could not do this. I could not get to this depth, this level of read. As when I make videos, I had all the time in the world. What's even more interesting is as I do the read, I get the meaning, and I can meditate on any card as long as I want. Then when I make the video, sometimes information is still coming to me. So another way to explain passing through the deck or passing through the card is and I alluded to this when I talked about psychic tarot, the cards represent elements of the mind, elements of life. Jung called them archetypes of the mind, and even before Jung, what's his name? Was it Waite, the guy who helped create the Rider Waite deck? He even talked about the symbology of it being of the mind. So it is a doorway to higher mind, or to the collective mind, or whatever you want to call it, the universal mind. I really don't, I'm not really fixated on a term, but I know that once you get to this right mental state, and you focus on the card, you look at it, you mentally sort of move through the card, and information will come to you. Sometimes not. A word, a color, and I want to make it very, very clear. When I do this, I get information that is correct and useful. When I'm really practiced and really good, maybe 1 out of 5 times, and 1 out of 5 reads. That's, it's not a high success rate, but it's impressive as hell when you come up with something totally out of the blue that you didn't get from the card, that you somehow supernaturally acquired, and you say to the reader something that you could not have possibly known. This is what I believe is a real supernatural psychic ability. Now, the thing about this also is you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with the reader. And if you blow it, if you see, something, and the reader, the querent says, I have no clue what that could mean, then you just have to be honest. Say, well, I don't always get it right. I could be wrong. Or it could be something that you're not seeing now, or it could be something in your future. And that happens too. But I want to give an example. And the other thing is too, you're seeing information, but you're not always seeing the connection. So what can happen, and this is what happened once. I was reading for somebody, and it was a read about their love life. And I got to this point, the card wasn't making sense, and so I did that little exercise that I do, and I saw Goodyear tires. And I thought, what in the hell do Goodyear tires have to do with a love reading? Well, I live in a city that has a Goodyear plant. So I thought, you know what, this just must be information from my own mind. Maybe I drove by it that day, what have you. I don't know. And the person I was reading for lived in another state. So I thought, but it came in so clearly and strong, I just said, and I didn't say Goodyear, I said, why am I seeing tires in a read about your love life? And this is what you have to do as a good reader, is when you have information like that come to you and you don't understand it, by all means, ask the querent. The querent knows more about their life than you do. Even though you might want to claim to be psychic and all-powerful, don't kid yourself. We know better. So I said, what is this? Why am I seeing tires in a read about your love life? And the querent said, well, there's this guy I'm friends with, and he likes me a lot, and he wants to be more than friends, and he works at the Goodyear Tire Company. See, I didn't even say Goodyear to her. So for me, that was such a unique event that it matched so perfectly with what I saw. I have no doubt in my mind that I somehow pulled off a psychic event, a psychic supernatural thing that I somehow, with intention, not just tripping over it, or sometimes you have these things that come to you. I, with intent, saw something that was of importance to the read. I know there's probably some people, if you watch this, who are tarot experts, and this happens all the time, and you've gotten used to it. I'm still, it still blows my mind when something like this happens. Uh, so I've learned too that sometimes what you get is not significant, but it might be real. I've also said, said something and said, well, you're attending college because I saw you in a cafeteria that looked like a school cafeteria, and they'll say, yeah, but it has no significance to the read. So sometimes you'll connect psychically and get information that has nothing to do with the read. The goal isn't to show or prove to the person that you're how powerful a psychic you are, or how much supernatural ability you have. It's got to be tempered to be about the read. And I'm just pleased as punch that 1 in 5 times I can come up with something, at least when I'm really practiced. Maybe in the future I'll be able to hone that better and get the meaning of what I see down better. At this point, when I don't, I actually ask the querent for help. So, why is 1 in 5 times important to me? It's important because when you look at the scientific data that people like Rupert Sheldrake and Dean Radin are coming up with, the numbers are pretty much in accordance with my success rate. When they do these experiments, the deviation from what normal chance would be is usually around 20% in some cases. Some cases it's lower. So, from my understanding of what supernatural ability is, and supernatural psychic ability, if someone is telling you they're 100% accurate, they're lying. I've never met anyone who's that accurate. I've been told that my reads are 80% accurate. Well, the read may be, but the psychic ability, psychic supernatural ability is not. Like I say, when I'm really skilled, when I'm really practiced, maybe 1 in 5. And then that thing that I get isn't always helpful. So I wanted to definitely include this because for me, as I say, my reason for going into tarot was to learn and understand psychic and supernatural ability better. And I think that maybe this has forced me into a much different style than people who are just interpreting what the cards mean as they come up. Another thing too, a phrase that I've heard people use about my reads a number of times was that they feel healed by them. This is something that I wasn't really comfortable with initially. I thought maybe that's just a new agey kind of, catchphrase, kind of gratuitous thing to say. But I noticed that they weren't saying that about other reads they got from other people. And then I realized when I look back at my history, I did study healing arts long, long time ago. And so I have to wonder if part of what I'm doing isn't actually also a transfer of energy, some type of, and I'm suspicious of this. It's kind of like a Reiki thing, but I didn't study Reiki. I studied something much older and more, well, I don't want to compare these things, but I studied with Jian Dao, and it doesn't have all the New Age glitz about it that Reiki does. It's, in my mind, still much more traditional. Hard to find a teacher who can teach it well. And I'm always suspicious of people who say they can heal at a distance. It's just something I think because there's so many charlatans out there. But even my teacher claimed that it was possible. So I also have to wonder then if maybe because of my style is so so focused not on things that are not just card based but on these connections, that maybe there is some type of healing going on. I'm suspicious of these things more than anyone else. I'm not about to go out and say that I have all these abilities and powers because I don't think that they're that special. I think that there's things anyone can do if they train themselves. But I'm really starting to come to terms with the fact that if it takes me longer, that's okay. If somebody says they feel healed, um, maybe there's something to that. Maybe not. But I know I definitely need to focus more. I think that there's more to be explored. I think that I am on the right track, definitely, with how I'm going about this. I think I'm going to be studying more occult elements of the archaic um, tarot. Um, and I think that, well, I hope you've all enjoyed these videos. I hope that I've offered up something of value for people to think about. And by no means do I think this is the best way or the only way. It's just different, and I'm hoping that by sharing this, um, uh, people understand tarot better, and they understand just how deep you can go with it, and that it's, you know, far beyond a parlor trick. And it can be a meditation, and it can be something that you get a deep connection with. Okay? So I hope you've enjoyed these. I'm going to make one more final one on the goal of tarot. And thanks for sticking with me this far. Peace.